What if I told you everything you thought you knew about the Matrix movies was a lie? What if I told you everything you've been told about the real world, our real world, from teachers to politicians, and especially to Hollywood, was a lie? And the internet especially. AI, absolutely. And right here, YouTube, with its endless procession of so-called gurus, who, like the main guru from the Matrix, Morpheus, and despite how he presents himself, will only lead you away from the truth. Morpheus, whose very name tells us who and what he really is. And above all, that we, like the hero, Thomas Anderson, never should have trusted him in the first place. This man who presents himself as our hero's guide, as the mentor who awakens him to a higher reality, and by extension, us. But is this what really happened for the man known as Thomas Anderson? Or was it the exact opposite? And this hero instead was led into an endless labyrinth of dark, downward spiraling rabbit holes filled with illusions and deceptions and false promises. And not only him, but his twin, his double, if you will, who is us. What if I told you the real villain of the Matrix wasn't Agent Smith, nor the architect, nor the robot Sentinel army, but someone vastly more insidious. Someone who presents himself as a best friend, a father even. Just like in the real world, does evil not operate in the same way? Not cartoonish evil like you see in movies and comic books, but real evil, which is cunning, full of malice, and full of deception. I'm going to tell you what the Matrix is really about, and in all humility, this is a very important video. If you've seen my other videos, you know I don't pull any punches, but this one will make the others look like I pulled every single punch by comparison, because it's going to get intense and raw. And right up front, I'll tell you, this isn't a theory. This is the truth. It's there in the movie, whether or not the filmmakers intended it, consciously anyway. For I subscribe to a school of thought that says in art, in human creativity, in the imagination, there's a power that operates even without the maker's conscious awareness. A spirit, you could say. For the imagination is very different from the intellect, yet, like to it in this, it is a truth-bearing faculty, only far more mysterious, and for that reason, more suggestible and more able to be deceived, which is what this video is all about. I'm not going to invite you to venture with me down into the rabbit hole, filling your head with false promises of truth and light, because as you'll see in a moment, that's precisely what the villain does, both in this movie and in the real world, our real world. Lastly, I warn you up front, you will be challenged by what we discover, what really lurks down in the rabbit hole. And considering what I'm going to say and who I'm going to be calling out, this may even be removed from YouTube. Join me then, as for the first time, we truly decode the Matrix. What's it about? That's the question we always ask when someone mentions seeing a great movie or reading a book that shook him to the core. What's it about? And of course, we mean the basic plot, but doesn't the conversation always inevitably lead to the deeper meaning of what it's really about? No work of fiction this century, and maybe even in this era of mass entertainment, which began over 100 years ago, has sparked more speculating about its deeper meanings than The Matrix. I know I said I'm going to probe the imagination, but this video is a work of logos, meaning reasoning and rational analysis. Mythos is a counterpart of communicating ideas via stories, but we'll commence using the intellect. What's it about? Always, philosophers begin with what's simple and obvious. In our case, the plot. I'll be brief, considering we all know it. The Matrix is about a young computer programmer named Thomas Anderson, who works at an office in a soulless existence, which most of us can certainly relate to, and to get his kicks, he dabbles in hacking, certain unspoken black market dealings, and, perhaps not unlike you and I, tracking down conspiracy theories. I don't know about you, but this last point summed up over 10 years of my life. He's trying to learn about this Matrix, which, while he doesn't seem to really know what it even is, he's borderline obsessed with figuring it out. He's a searcher. He has questions. He sees glimpses, it seems, of hidden aspects of the world, and he's looking for a guide who might unveil it for him. Alright, fast forward. He's contacted by a mysterious figure named Morpheus through his computer, who mystically seems to know what's happening in Thomas Anderson's life, almost telepathically, whether it's people coming to the door with particular tattoos, to intimidating men in suits looking for him, even to the geography of a labyrinthine office space. There's agents, there's some kind of dark magic, there's shiny leather. He meets another hacker at an S&M club, which he is completely unfazed by, which I'll return to later, and is drawn into the rabbit hole, emerging in another world, ultimately, our world, coming to discover that the world he thought he knew was actually a computer simulation, inside which he, and virtually all of humanity, was connected through some kind of brain-computer interface. I don't know, let's call it Neuralink. Anyway, so he discovers the whole modern world he thought he knew, with built buildings and fast cars and shiny leather. Lots and lots and lots of shiny leather. It's all an illusion, a dream whose dreamers, us, don't know they're asleep. In reality, the real world of the movie, there's a war between man and machine that escalated to cataclysmic proportions. The machines won and now hold humanity enslaved, harvesting us for our energy to power the machines, since they lost access to their former energy source, the sun, when we scorched the sky. And the human battery slaves are kept alive not just biologically, but also neurologically, thinking they're still living in this world of buildings, cars, and shiny leather, a false world of deception that freedom fighters like this Morpheus leader and his team are striving to expose, so they say, to free humanity from their AI enslavement and restore our rightful place as masters of the real world, based out of a city in the real world called Zion. So that's the premise. The entire franchise being set either within the Matrix or in the, quote, real world, or both. Okay, that's the plot version of the question, what's it about? What I'm here to tell you, which in all humility, nobody has ever discovered until now, is the deeper allegorical answer to what's it about? What's it really about? And it's hinted at by the very name of our hero, plus a primary visual motif of the movie. Our hero is who? Neo? No, that's the mirrored doppelganger of our hero. Our real hero, in fact, only really lives for about 20 minutes of the first movie before dying in a way. That is Thomas A. Anderson. His very name, Thomas, which means twin, is the key to our whole thesis. It is the real secret hidden at the heart of the labyrinth of the Matrix. It's all about twins, doubles, mirrors, that visual motif I mentioned a minute ago, and particularly, as you'll see in a moment, what goes along with mirrors, which is inversions. And it gets very bizarre once you realize it extends out into the real world, our real world. For who made these movies? The Wachowski brothers. But wait, who are they now? Even these twins, so to speak, have a mirror doppelganger set of inverted twins, right? So that's our thesis. There are two matrices, the movie version and the our real world version. That's the pattern in case you get lost. Doubles, mirrors, inversions. Two heroes, Thomas Anderson and Neo, yes, but also Thomas Anderson and you, the viewer. There's the trinity of the movie and the trinity of our actual reality. Movie Morpheus and real world Morpheus, who, or what I should say, I'll focus on in the greatest detail. Lastly, there's the real world of the movie, a desolate battleground with a hope-filled utopia called Zion, and the real world of our world, which is a battleground of a different sort, which has its own Zion, albeit largely ignored due to the influence of movies and Morpheuses, as I'll explain, like this. Much of this is certainly intentional by the filmmakers. The religious connections, for instance, aren't just obvious, they're simply overt. Neo is the one, an obvious Messiah figure. Zion, as in Jerusalem, I'm not going to dwell on that, as it's been done to death already. I'm going to go into other truths that dwell inside this movie, this imaginative creation. Truths that are, as I've said, not necessarily intended by its creators, but I could be wrong even there. I don't claim knowledge of anyone's intentions. Speaking of doubles, the big mirror of our entire thesis is nothing other than the movie screen itself. It's at once the boundary between dream and reality, and the portal through which dream spirits, so to speak, or at least their messages, pass on unto us. Alright, all that's by way of overview. Let's dive in. Many have pointed out movies are shared dreams. It's dark, you're seeing things, experiencing narratives that you aren't generating yourself, lucid dreamers notwithstanding. But more importantly, you're suggestible because your very brainwaves are altered by this quasi-dream experience as you enter an alpha state of consciousness. During deep sleep, you're in what's called a delta wave state of mind. But when you're just falling asleep, and when you're in that shallower state of REM, which is when you dream, you're in alpha wave state. So movies and TV very much are just like dreams. And for our purposes here, similar in one key aspect. You're open to suggestion and messages via a guide of some kind. Like Thomas Anderson, we want to know, but we don't know. And we don't even know what we don't know. And so we need someone who does, and hopefully someone we can trust. But unfortunately, this is not what we get in the movie and all too often in real life. All throughout history, in pagan cultures, in the Bible, you have a constant theme of spirits communicating with mankind through our dreams. And spirits who aren't on our level. It's not like your pal Billy passing notes in class. These spirits are guides. They're above us. Precisely the sort who Thomas Anderson and we in our own lives are searching for. hence the gurus we constantly read and tune into for the answers and the guidance we seek. Historically, these dream spirits almost always represent or actually are the divine, hence you trust them. Now for Catholics, this is why we know not to trust any messages we get in our dreams, because not all spirits are good, and we already have a guru who we know won't lead us astray. More on that later. So, angel comes to us from the Greek, the word, and it just means messenger. What if I told you that there was just such a messenger in the Matrix franchise who operates both in the movie and via his mirror inversion doppelganger, his twin, out here in our real world, which has its own Matrix copy or double. And that messenger's name is, of course, Morpheus. Pop quiz, hotshot. What do you think the name is of the figure from Greek myth who is not just a dream spirit, but the most skilled of all dream spirits? That's right, Morpheus, which literally means shaper of dreams. And his father was the Greek god of sleep itself, and his name is Hypnos. Are you seeing the connections yet? As I said at the beginning, I'm not even convinced that Wachowskis had this consciously in mind. But it doesn't matter, because I'm firmly convinced that such symbols and even messages operate beneath our conscious intent, as I've said. You have your own opinion on that, I'm sure, but I see it as more than significant that there are all these connections between movies and dreams and messengers and even hypnotic suggestion and magic. They could also be doing this on purpose, but the beauty is it really doesn't matter. Works of art take on a life of their own. Anyway, so a movie screen is a gateway, a mirror, a portal even, to the matrix of the movie world. As we all know, the matrix in the movie is a false, illusory reality meant to keep us under control. It's done through scientific means, yet it also has the touch of magic about it, doesn't it? From the point of view of the people inside the Matrix especially, and for us, the viewers on the other side of that portal, that black scrying mirror you can call the theater or TV screen, or our phones of course, we experience the movie, although technically sci-fi, very much the same as we do a fantasy movie. This fantastical quality is even explicit in places of the movie. Think of references to Alice in Wonderland or Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. So, Morpheus' job in the movie is a messenger, a dream spirit who leads the hero, Thomas Anderson. Where? To a state of alert wakefulness and heavenly enlightenment? Absolutely not. He leads him down the rabbit hole. Do good, trustworthy mentors lead you down dark rabbit holes, or do villains? And where does Morpheus first tell Thomas to begin his journey? Do well-meaning father figures lead you to freakish S&M shiny leather sex clubs? Methinks not. Villains do. Because if there's one other state of mind in which man is most suggestible, beyond sleep, beyond hypnosis, even beyond drugs, it's the fog of lust. It certainly can seem like a kind of magic, as for some people who practice things like tantric yoga and whatnot. I mean, how many cults or how many psychos seeking to dominate and control others employ tactics involving sex? This is the Matrix, and I'm now talking about our world. Morpheus, the shaper of dreams, represents his twin, his mirror doppelganger out here in our world. And it's not just an individual person, but an organization, you can call it, which has a dominant spirit, I think you'll agree, a zeitgeist, if you will, considering its influence on America and the world, and that real-world Morpheus of which I speak is Hollywood. But before I get to that, we must pin down precisely who this Morpheus character is, who is mirrored by the character played by Lawrence Fishburne in the movie, but also is incarnate, so to speak, in our world represented by Hollywood, as I'll get to it in a second. At a glance, Morpheus is a standard narrative archetype present in every iteration of what's called the monomyth, aka the hero's journey, where the hero, i.e. Thomas Anderson and his twin, us, is helped chiefly by a guide called a mentor. Morpheus is also an echo of a real person from our world, as is the Matrix's story world itself, and that is Plato and his allegory of the cave. It's the whole movie, really. If you're unfamiliar with Plato's cave, it presents a situation where people are in a cave underground, never having known anything else exists, and they're chained to the floor and forced to stare at the wall in one direction. Appearing on that wall are shadow puppets cast from a fire behind them, which they don't know is there. Hence, someone is showing them a false reality that they think is real on, so to speak, a screen. This, I think, is why this franchise has been so enduring, because our century can be defined as the era of deception. So, in the Matrix movie, everyone inside the system, because our century can be defined as the era of deception and movie magic. So, in the Matrix movie, everyone inside the system, including Thomas Anderson in the beginning, is essentially chained to the floor and staring at a false shadow play that they think is the real world. Plato's allegory goes on where one of them escapes and he navigates out of the cave but is struck blind by the brightness. He thinks he's dead, but his eyes adjust and he discovers the world of wonders that's been out there the whole time, the real world. This, according to Plato, is the philosopher. He sees the truth of the world that others do not, And then he ventures back down into the cave to free them, back down into the rabbit hole to lead them out, to awaken them, you could say, from the false dream reality of the dark shadow play. This symbolizes the Matrix, of course, but the mirror twin version is the movie theater itself, here in our world, which has been described as a shared dream. And I'm extending this experience into the virtual world of the internet too, which now is enmeshed with the external world through our phones and cameras and screens and scanners everywhere, and even projection technology and other things that blur the line between real and illusory. In the AI world of the 2020s, I think this is far more relevant even than when this movie first came out in 1999. So Morpheus serves as a stand-in for this philosopher who, in Plato's allegory, actually fails in his mission to awaken the people in the cave, because they've become so attached to the illusion that when he tries to destroy it and lead them to true freedom in the outside world, they kill him. Morpheus, the movie character, actually summarizes this concept. So this connection is not something I've come up with, but is overtly seeded into the movie. The sleight of hand, as I've pointed out, is that Morpheus himself is the fake. He's no philosopher trying to awaken Thomas Anderson and anyone else. He's the shaper of dreams, remember? He convinces this young computer programmer that he's some messianic figure. It even convinces him to change not just his name, becoming thenceforth Neo, aka New, the favorite word of the New World Order that seeks to overwrite history and tradition and memory hole everything old. Morpheus convinces him, moreover, to change his whole identity. Sound familiar? That young man, whoever he was going to be, will never know, because a dream spirit led him down so deep into the rabbit hole that he never emerged. And not only Thomas Anderson, but his twin, us. Who is the twin of Morpheus out in our world? The deceiver spinning illusions around us? Well, I already said it's Hollywood. And look at these filmmakers. They're twins, sort of, but what happened to them? Down the rabbit hole even they went. First one of them transitioning, so-called, and then the other. What? And how many others have followed the lead of these guides? It's sad that celebrities are some people's gurus, but is that not the case? How many other celebrities, other dream spirit messengers, have there been doing the same thing? Bruce Jenner, both Will Smith's children, I believe, Ellen Page, so many. These are all little Morpheuses, are they not? Do they not influence and lead people? Yet, not at all like the philosopher in Plato's cave, who seeks to lead the deceived people up and out of the earth, out of rabbit holes towards true light and life, and ultimately heaven, as Plato himself does, as I'll relate at the end of this. No, rather, these Hollywood dream spirits are the true philosopher's mirror inversion anti-messengers, who we've identified as Morpheus himself, the movie character. And not without meaning, I think, the figure from myth called Morpheus was said to be the son of the Greek god of sleep, named Hypnos, as I've said. Now tell me, if there's any word that comes to mind that describes the effect these Morpheus twin anti-messengers have had on our real-world society, is it not hypnosis? If you're anything like me, you wake up each day to a world and people, friends, family, who are only more insane, more hypnotized. You probably feel like you're in an insane asylum. This is what the movie The Matrix is really about, but deep under the surface, like I've said. Most people take the simple, oh, we live in a matrix, people need to take the red pill and see all the psyops, see it's all fake, but then go no further. My friend, I'm telling you, it goes much deeper. It gets pretty dark too, actually, when you get to the Luciferian, Judeo-Masonic New World Order, which is literally satanic, whether you believe in supernatural evil or not, because you see these mirrorings between shared dream, works of cinema, or workings, rather, and our real world. So the guide in the movie and the guide in real life are doing what? Awakening us? Not at all. Look at the state of society. Movies like this have been instrumental in transforming it. The Wachowski brothers, which is what I'm going to call them because that's what they are perfect representatives of this world spirit zeitgeist, which is fast going off the rails. But it's not going headlong into the abyss alone, is it? No, of course not. It's dragging us, it's leading us right into the abyss along with it. That's why this movie is so fundamental to this thesis that encapsulates Hollywood and the so-called New World Order. Because the Wachowski brothers are emblematic of this Geist, this ghost or spirit, which, I don't know about you, but to me, seems like it's very literally cast a spell in our society. Or I should say, possessed us, like a true egregore, if you've heard the term. But at the least, Hollywood is the primary instrument of sculpting and shaping and engineering this society away from what it once was and making it something quite different. Hollywood, our real-world mirror doppelganger Morpheus, our real world's immensely powerful shaper of dreams, comes from the word, well, Hollywood, 2 words. But why holly? Is there such a proliferation of holly trees, a whole wood or forest of them in fact, that earned the moniker? Or is it because holly is the plant of choice, the branch of choice, which witches literally use for making wands to cast their spells, druids especially? I know, you probably don't believe any of this is real, I understand. And I'm not going to try to prove to you that witchcraft is really real and diabolic in origin. At this point in time, I think you either believe it or you don't and probably never will. But my thesis here operates whether you either believe in the supernatural and preternatural or if you're a strict materialist naturalist. I will prove that they, the powers that be, the shapers of dreams, which goes well beyond Hollywood, do believe in magic, in sorcery, in witchcraft, in spirits. So whether you think they're real agents of devils or just a bunch of sad, smelly LARPers who've read Harry Potter too many times, all agree there are people around us who think they're witches and do witchcraft-like things. And it looks like they really use the holly tree for wands. Okay. But from where do they cast or think they're casting their spells? From a magic circle, right? Which has an inverted pentagram inside of it. And what's at the center of an upside down pentagram? That's right, a pentagon. Am I saying the CIA established Hollywood to be a base for the New World Order, social engineering, dream shaping, spell casting operation of mass deception? Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. And there's an investigative journalist who actually, I think, proved this beyond a shadow of a doubt. I'll return to the Matrix movie in a second, but this part is very important. I'll be brief, but you can look it up if you want more on it. But I warn you, this is not a red pill. It is a straight black pill. And these aren't theories, but conspiracy facts, as I'll prove. It actually contributed to my own conversion to Catholicism because I did become convinced during this investigation of something I formerly denied. And that is, not just the existence of secret societies who operate at the highest levels of power and influence, but the existence of real, actual supernatural entities commonly called demons, and that they have agents or servants, rather, who do their bidding, and yes, at the very top of media, government, and industry. But I won't go too dark, I promise. David McGowan is the investigative journalist. You can look all of this up. David McGowan. You could even contact him, except for the fact that he died mysteriously during the course of this investigation, which he was publishing in installments as he was actually investigating it. It focuses on a part of LA called Laurel Canyon, near Hollywood, where he identified a suspicious number of celebrities, musicians especially, who were not only related to the military intelligence community, but were the direct offspring of its members. Name someone from the 60s West Coast scene, and you can bet their mom or dad were military intelligence officers. Start with the Mamas and the Papas, whose hit song, California Dreaming, could be the theme song for this whole video. Yes, John Phillips, the leader of the band, was the son of a military officer. His classmate was none other than Jim Morrison, whose dad was literally the admiral who led the US naval fleet into the Gulf of Tonkin that sparked the Vietnam War. An incident that has been proven to be a lie and verifiable false flag. What are the odds this guy's son becomes one of the leaders of this countercultural revolution of sex and drugs and rebellion against authority that I think you can say hypnotized or cast a spell on 3, now going on 4 generations of Americans? The whole world, actually. Frank Zappa, same thing. David Crosby of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, so many others. And all these guys burst onto the scene, not just from Los Angeles in the broad sense, but specifically this one patch of rugged land called Laurel Canyon. The Beatles regularly visited this one house. It all gets very creepy, and this bit is definitely a black pill, as it involves children dying mysteriously, even culminates in the strange circumstance of John Lennon's murder, which happened literally outside the apartment complex where, of all things, Rosemary's Baby was filmed. Itself a movie about actors and others who invoke Satan and literally give birth to the Antichrist, with the movie's Jewish director, Roman Polanski, convicted of drugging and raping a 13-year-old girl. These are straight black pills. I really hate talking about them, and I promise I won't go into them any further. I personally refuse to look so deeply into this stuff ever again, actually. And I know I don't have to, because all I need to know is this. Hollywood and the entertainment industry itself, music, popular fiction, plays, nearly all of it, and certainly the big players are all pure evil. False guides, phony gurus, lying shaper of dream Morpheuses that must be avoided like the plague. My other videos go into it more deeply. Not dark black pill stuff though, I promise. But like this recent one about Avatar and transhumanism. I'll end this section with this. Please, I am begging you to cut Hollywood out of your life. Also, share this video. Please, like, subscribe, and share it, because holy smokes, I need your help getting discovered. But what do we do for entertainment, you might ask? For true recreation, where your soul isn't led into the abyss through drugs and porn and lying dream spirits? Read my book. I'm giving away a free chapter so you can see for yourself there is still hope for entertainment, but you must not look for it from Hollywood. It's time for the restoration. My book is set after a great calamity destroys the world, but then we rebuilt. It's a wonderful neo-Renaissance world with one key difference. Sorcerers and monsters and vampires prowl around the enchantlands, out beyond the walls, and Slayer Knights bearing supernatural weapons have emerged to vanquish them. There's an excellent prophecy about a great hero who alone will be found worthy to bear, you guessed it, the Eternal Sword. If you like action, questing, solving mysteries, more action, all set around the Slayer Olympics where teenage swordsmen compete for a chance to become bona fide Slayer Knights, then, my friend, click the link in the description, read a free chapter, and pre-order the best YA fantasy book of 2026, The Eternal Sword Saga, The Battle of God's Stream. Now, back to the video. Alright, so my point of going to all that unseemliness was to show you that there are conspiracy theories and there are conspiracy facts. And this 1960s hippie counterculture revolution, which is presented as this grassroots, bottom-up, power to the people, let's stick it to the man movement, was anything but. It was a CIA operation, spellcasting from the center of a magician's circle, which is a pentagon, as I've said, using his favorite instrument of illusion, a wand made from the holly tree, hence Hollywood, aka the Shaper of Dreams, which is our world's Morpheus. Like Morpheus, Hollywood presents itself as our friend, doesn't it? Weaving its stories into our shared dreams to revive us and even enlighten us. Certainly, Hollywood is our world's predominant influencer and message bringer, or more properly, programmer. And all under whose direction? Who in this movie uses Morpheus to serve his own higher purpose? Isn't it the architect? The architect says there's been 5 iterations of this cycle, culminating in a so-called messiah who assimilates into the Matrix and causes a reboot where all of it starts over again. He's the mastermind, the architect, a cold logician engineering everything. And who's the mastermind of our world, which even Hollywood serves? Well, it goes by many names. One, I've mentioned the New World Order. You can call it the synagogue, the secret societies. Well, guess what the name is of the so-called god of Freemasonry? The Great Architect. This is the Matrix we're all living in. And tell me, does anybody talk about this? Everything you consume for entertainment, music, movies, shows, games, nearly all of it is weaponized entertainment, designed not to turn you into a battery, like Morpheus said. Remember, he's a deceiver, a shaper of dreams, not a true awakener. But who would argue against the claim that Hollywood is designed to keep you enslaved, to keep you asleep, to keep you from knowing the truth about reality, and to keep you chained to the floor of that cave, staring in dumb amusement at the shadow puppets, the shared dreams of endless shows and series on Netflix? While meanwhile, people like perhaps me, or what I at least try to be, are trying to truly awaken you. But these children of Hypnos, these Morpheuses, are geniuses, if I may say. Because not only do they succeed in deceiving you, and I'm not just talking about convincing you of the tranny or homosexual or transhuman agendas, it is that, but it's also just keeping you locked on your phone or computer, scrolling through conspiracies, but never really doing anything, never progressing and growing in virtue. That is also a rabbit hole, is it not? A trap, not much different from being chained to the floor, because it has the same outcome. It's keeping you from fleeing the cave, escaping the Matrix and its rabbit holes, and walking out into the bright, beautiful world of actual reality and your true purpose. That's what I want to do then. Am I Plato? Certainly not. But I am absolutely not Morpheus, trying to pull you deeper into the rabbit hole. My friend, I spent over 10 years in rabbit holes. Conspiracies, I mean. I'm telling you, get out now. There is no end to them. Yes, conspiracies are real. If you're still with me, I'm sure you know that 9/11 was a false flag. COVID was a lie. Trump has been their guy from the beginning. His assassination attempt, a hoax, on and on. It's important to know some of this, so you're not deceived, yes. But there is a higher purpose to your life that these conspiracies will never help you achieve. What does Morpheus tell you you're here for? To be a battery, right? That's why the system grows and then harvests us. But does the movie character ever tell us the real reason we're here? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall it happening. It's just a generic Masonic sense of, quote, freedom, isn't it? Liberty, fraternity, equality. That's the mantra of the Judeo-Masonic New World Order from the French Revolution on. Morpheus tells Thomas Anderson he's Neo, right? And convinces him to be this great messianic liberator. Thomas Anderson, i.e. us, never returns to his true life, which represents us never realizing the real reason we're here. That young computer programmer never returned. But just think, what would have happened if he never followed that white rabbit? We'll never know. And how did it end for him? He merged with AI, assimilating with it. Is our real world trying to do anything different to us? My friend, straight up, you have to know the truth. And far more important than the existence of invisible persons called angels and demons, you must know the truth about your own nature, what you are as a person. Because the Matrix never tells you. It reinforces the transhumanist lie that you're just a body with chemistry and electricity and data that can be transported around. My friend, you are not a soul trapped in a body temporarily, nor a collection of atoms and chemicals and electricity, but rather a body-soul composite made for union with an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God who wants to spend eternity with you in your body, which you will get back at the general resurrection, because it's a fundamental part of your nature as a human. Angels are entirely spiritual. Animals are entirely carnal. Mankind is both. We are the bridge between the earthly realm and the angelic realm, uniting both as the sum total of all creation. The earth, the plants, the animals, oceans, rivers, stars, the sun, all creatures material and spiritual are united in you. That is the truth they are keeping from you. And God, who is not a force you can harness for power, but a person. 3 persons actually. The real Trinity, who is love. Love being Trinitarian, with the giver, the receiver, and the gift itself, right? Father, Son, Spirit. 3 united as one. And while God doesn't need us, his very essence was, is, and will always be a perfect family of love, enjoying infinite bliss with or without us. We can't add to that. But in his unfathomable goodness, he decided to share his infinite love and bliss with creatures, angelic spirits, and us, you and me, human beings. God, the Holy Trinity, is who you were created to merge with. First, he merged with us, so to speak, by taking on our flesh, so we can ascend and take on his divinity, albeit we maintain our own identity, not self-annihilating and merging with machine, nor just going off on your own and living by your own rules, thinking you'll just return to source. That's what Neo does in the Matrix, and it's a lie, my friend. You need to love, obey, and serve God. Will these movies help you do that? These shapers of dreams. Getting any further into the spiritual errors spread by this movie is beyond the scope of this video, but I'll just say, this Gnosticism, epitomized by lines like, "there is no spoon," is absolutely everywhere in the world right now. The spell it casts on the viewer isn't that the computer mainframe matrix is illusory, but rather it convinces us that our real external reality is illusory. That's what "there is no spoon" means, isn't it? I personally know people who certainly live like this, who think your body is not a fundamental part of your nature as a human. This is so important in this time of transhuman deception. The Matrix is more relevant now than ever, actually, especially with the proliferation alongside transhumanism of another belief system, which I'm going to go into right now, and that is the New Age. The New Age is basically a repackaging of the ancient heresy of Gnosticism, albeit repackaged in techno-utopian black leather cyber tights. I was taken for the same ride myself, by the way. I was totally into these New Age concepts, that we can all be like Neo and see the code of reality and harness God. God, who's not a person external to ourselves, yet who knows us and commands or forbids certain things and is pleased and displeased by our words and actions. No. Rather, in the New Age, God is a force or a power we can tap into. God is like a wave we can enter or ride according to this. This is called panpsychism, where the universe is conscious, the universe is God, thou art one with the universe, and therefore, in a sense, thou art God. Is this any different from the lie that the serpent told Eve in the garden? Thou shalt be like gods, knowing good and evil. He, the devil, was the first to do all of this, wasn't he? Posing as the great liberator, the messenger spirit first coming to free man, while in reality shackling him to sin, enslaving him to his own fleshly desires, and convincing him of errors. Morpheus is Lucifer, straight up. That's Satan appearing as an angel of light, as a good guy. Hollywood is Lucifer, possessed certainly of a Luciferian spirit. Who would disagree? The Matrix is the myth of Prometheus all over again, where Prometheus is the hero stealing fire, which represents both wisdom and true freedom, which he steals from the gods, hence God, and this is the Christian God, of course, who knows and loves and commands and forbids and is pleased and displeased, who knows and loves and commands and forbids and is pleased and displeased. This God in the Promethean myth, which is a mirrored doppelganger inversion of the Garden of Eden, and in this inversion, God is evil, and Prometheus, again representing Lucifer, is the messianic savior of mankind, aka Neo under the tutelage of his inverted spirit guide, dream shaper, and spellcaster Morpheus. Do you see this is what the Matrix and so much of Hollywood and all mainstream entertainment is doing to us? To you? Does this sound harmless? If Catholicism is true, then can you see there is nothing more evil, actually? That the stakes of this life are unimaginable, yet movies like this keep you in the rabbit holes of conspiracy theories, porn, and dumb amusement. And I was totally ensnared, like I said. I was going from rabbit hole to rabbit hole. It was a never-ending merry-go-round, when in reality, there's a reason I'm here, a truth to my nature, to every hour of my life, and especially to the nature of God, who is infinitely more important than any of us. Yet, our Matrix reality convinces us of the opposite, that man is at the center of everything, and God, whoever and whatever God even is here to serve us. Yet, he or it can also be totally ignored with no consequence for your eternal soul. Isn't that what everyone says? I'll close with a reference to someone I discussed at the beginning of this, who served as our gateway into the Matrix in this whole thesis, and that is Plato. He wrote another work titled, I don't know how to pronounce it, Gorgias. And in it, Socrates, who we only know from Plato's writings, in case you didn't know, talks about the true meaning of life, to human existence, and especially to our fate after death. He makes the case that true happiness lies in pursuing virtue and justice rather than power and success and material comfort. Most everyone would agree with this, I think. But then he talks about the eternal fate of the one versus the other. When the soul separates from the body after death, Socrates says, it goes to the judgment. Remember, this is from 380 BC. People think judgment is a Christian concept because the Morpheus spellcasters and dreamweavers of Hollywood have convinced you that this comes from that backwater superstitious control system from the Middle Ages called the Catholic Church. Guys, this is 380 BC. The judge, who Socrates names Rhadamanthus, sees in the soul what sort of life the man lived. This is when the man has died. The soul appears and Rhadamanthus sees what sort of man he really was. It might be the case, and now I'll quote Socrates saying, Rhadamanthus looks with admiration on the soul of some just one who has lived in holiness and truth. He may have been a private man or not. And I should say, and again, this is Socrates speaking, that he is most likely to have been a philosopher who has done his own work and not troubled himself with the doings of other men in his lifetime. Him Rhadamanthus sends to the islands of the blessed. My friend, if you're scoffing at this, Socrates goes on to address you directly. Quote, perhaps this may appear to you to be only an old wives' tale, which you will contemn. That's contemn with a T, to despise or treat with contempt. Although I, he goes on to say, am persuaded of the truth of these things, and I consider how I shall present my soul whole and undefiled before the judge in that day. My friend, I'm going to close with his words because I certainly won't be topping Socrates or Plato. But I'll slip in here. Please like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it worthy of merit in any way. I need your help. And click this link in the description. Get a free chapter of my most excellent, masculine, virtue-inducing YA fantasy novel full of escapes and rescues, riddles and battles, horns and heroes, and soul-inspiring triumph over the forces of evil. The Eternasword Saga. Alright, I will let a true guide who desires not to put to sleep but to awaken, and who leads not into the dark depths of endless rabbit holes but the heights of heavenly light. Plato, via Socrates, who I'm convinced is talking to you and me in this, my friend. I will let him take us out. Quote, follow me then, and I will lead you where you will be happy in life and after death. And never mind if someone despises you as a fool and insults you. Let him strike you, by Zeus. And do you be of good cheer, and do not mind the insulting blow, for you will never come to any harm in the practice of virtue, if you are a really good and true man. I desire only to know the truth, and to live as well as I can, and, when I die, to die as well as I can. And, to the utmost of my power, I exhort all other men to do the same. And in return for your exhortation of me, I exhort you also to take part in the great combat, which is the combat of life, and greater than every other earthly conflict.